Story 1: The Blue Route. The GPS screamed, not with a beep, but with a wet, human shriek that burst from the dash speakers and filled the cab like breath in a freezer. I flinched so hard my knee knocked the steering column, and the Pete's headlights juddered across the tree line. The screen flashed a color I'd never seen on any map, an impossible, bruised blue route line. Then the voice came back, calm as a dispatcher. Turn right now. I wasn't on a road with a right turn. I was on Interstate 80, eastbound, Wyoming, mile marker 287, nothing but wind, sage, and the long, flat promise of making Salt Lake by morning. My logbook said I had 41 minutes before I needed to park, and my eyelids felt like they'd been sanded from the inside. But the GPS kept insisting there was a right turn, and the shriek it had made still crawled behind my teeth. A ramp appeared where there shouldn't have been one. It came out of the dark like a fresh scar, black asphalt, no signage, no reflectors, no merge lane, just a sudden mouth opening beside my trailer. The GPS line pulsed, that bruised blue, as if it were alive. I told myself it was a service road. Construction detour, anything. The reefer unit behind me hummed steadily, carrying 22 pallets of refrigerated beef, and the weight of it pressed on my spine like a hand. The GPS repeated softer, turn right now. I didn't turn. The cab lights dimmed on their own. The radio display bled into static. The air in the sleeper went cold enough to sting my nose. And then the GPS voice whispered a sentence that wasn't route guidance. "Oh, Ethan, you missed it last time." No one on the road knew my names. My fingers went numb around the wheel. The exit ramp that had appeared slid behind me, swallowed by darkness, and the GPS shrieked again, louder like a throat being opened. I hit the brakes, the trailer shoved. The whole rig groaned as the air lines hissed and the Jake brake rattled my ribs. Cars behind me flashed their brights. A horn blared. I drifted onto the shoulder, gravel spitting under the tires. Well, the GPS stopped shrieking. The screen went black. Then it turned back on. Not to maps, not to my route, to a live feed. It showed my truck from above as if a drone hovered over me. The image was grainy, night vision green. I could see my own headlights slicing the shoulder. I could see the trailer's white sides. I could see the heat haze from the reefer. And I could see the ramp. It wasn't behind me anymore. It was beside me, perfectly aligned with my passenger door, like the world had rotated while I wasn't looking. The GPS voice returned, almost relieved. There it is. The ramp's asphalt wasn't asphalt. Under the headlights, it had a sheen like skin. The edge of it rose and fell subtly as if breathing. I should have called 911. I should have called dispatch. I should have thrown the GPS out the window. Instead, I put the truck in gear. I don't know why. Maybe because I'd been running hard for weeks and my brain was mush. Maybe because the voice knew my name and my body decided compliance was safer than curiosity. Maybe because, deep down, I recognized the tone, like my father used to speak when he'd found me hiding something. As I eased onto the ramp, the moment my front tires crossed the seam, the CB radio cracked alive with a voice that sounded like it had been recorded underwater. "A breaker 19, you talkin' the blue routes." My CB hadn't worked in days. Who is this?" I said, and my own voice came out thin. Static, then you'll see the way station, don't stop." The ramp curved down into a cut between hills that weren't there before. Interstate lights vanished behind me like someone had turned them off. The sky lowered. Even the stars looked wrong, too few, too sharp, like holes punched in paper. My GPS screen displayed a single word in the corner: returning. I didn't like that word. It made my stomach lurch. As the road narrowed, the yellow lines were faded, painted over older lines that had been scraped away. And beneath the paint, in the beam of my headlights, I saw other markings, handwritten-looking arrows like someone had drawn them with tar. Well, the reefer unit changed pitch. It started to whine. I glanced at the temperature readout. It was dropping 34, 32, 28. Come on, I muttered. Don't you freeze my load. The GPS voice answered, quiet. It's not the meat we're cooling. I tasted metal, my gums tingled. I swallowed and it hurt, like the air was full of needles. A sign appeared ahead, reflected in my brights. Away station open. The letters were too tall, too narrow, like they'd been stretched. A building squatted on the right, cinder block, one flickering fluorescent light, and a scale lane that looked like it had been poured yesterday. No cars, no cones, no officer. The CB radio hissed, don't stop. The GPS said, stop. Two different voices, two different demands. As I approached, my engine began to sputter, not from fuel, but from something pulling at it. My speed dropped, 50, 40, 30. The truck fought like a dog on a leash. I pressed the pedal, nothing. The way station light flickered, and in the moment it went out, I saw movement in the dark beside the scale. Limbs. Too many limbs. They stood close together like a crowd but silent. When the light came back, the shapes were gone. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my throat. I grabbed my phone, no service. The GPS screen brightened and the live feed returned. I saw the top of my truck. I saw the way station. I saw the crowd of shapes gathered around the scale, dozens of them only visible from above. And I saw something else, a second truck. It was parked beside the building, angled wrong as if it had been shoved there. Its trailer door hung open. I zoomed in with shaking fingers. The truck had my company logo, my unit numbers, my own rig. But the cab was crushed, like a fist had closed around it. The GPS voice whispered, "This is where you stopped." Memory hit me like diesel fumes. A flash of last winter, a storm, black ice, the moment the world spun and my trailer jackknifed. I told everyone I'd taken the interstate detour and made it out fine. But I remembered now. I remembered turning onto a ramp that wasn't on the map. I remembered a way station. I remembered stopping. Well, the engine died. Silence fell so hard my ears rang. The reefer unit behind me shut off. No hum, no vibration, just the wind pressing against the cab like someone breathing on the glass. The way station door cracked open. A man stepped out. At least his outline was man-shaped. He wore a reflective vest that didn't reflect. His head was bent low as if his neck couldn't support it. He lifted a handheld sign. Pull-ins. The GPS voice, gentle now. It's okay, Ethan, we just need your weight. My hands shook so badly I could barely find the ignition. I turned the key. The dash lights fluttered. The starter clicked once like a tongue. Nothing. The man by the scale began walking toward me, slow, dragging his feet. Each step made a sound like damp paper tearing. On the live feed, I saw the crowd of shapes start to move too, converging on my truck like ants toward sugar. As I thought of the beef in the trailer, thawing in the dead reefer, I thought of my logbook, the falsified hours, the lies. I thought of how many times I'd pushed myself past safe and how the road had always let me get away with it. Well, the GPS whispered, "You're late." Something tapped the trailer from inside. A single deliberate knock. Then another. Then a scraping like nails on aluminum. My breath came out in clouds. The inside of the windshield fogged, and in the fog, a fingertip traced a line from the passenger side, writing backward. Stop. The passenger window was closed. I slammed my palm against the glass. "No," I said, but it came out as a cough. The man reached my front bumper. Up close, I saw his vest wasn't fabric. It was a layer of pale, translucent skin stretched tight, with reflective tape embedded like veins. He looked up. His face was my face, only older, eyes sunk deep, lips cracked and black. He smiled, and the skin around his mouth split like thawing meat. "You stopped," he said. His voice was my GPS voice. Behind me, the trailer door clanged once from the outside. "Oh, latch." Someone had closed it. So I fumbled for the emergency air horn and leaned on it. No sound. The live feed on the GPS showed the crowd climbing onto my trailer, their limbs sticking to the white metal like suction cups. The man raised his hand and pressed it to my hood. Frost spread outward in spiderweb cracks. "You can't keep driving," he murmured. "You already arrived." My throat tightened. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't scream. Then, through the darkness behind the way station, I saw headlights. A real car, a patrol SUV bouncing along the access road, spotlight sweeping. The crowd froze. The man's smile faltered. The spotlight hit me, and for a split second the world snapped back, normal asphalt, normal way station, empty scale. The officer's voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "Driver, you okay?" My cab lurched as if released from a grip. The engine coughed to life without me turning the key. The reefer unit started humming again, too loud, like it was panicking. I didn't wait. I dropped it into gear and gunned it. The truck surged forward, tires screeching over the scale. The way station lights flickered behind me. I looked in the mirror. In the mirror, the ramp was gone. Just dirt and sagebrush. The patrol SUV wasn't behind me. There was nothing but darkness. My GPS screen returned to my route on I-80 like nothing had happened. The bruised blue line was gone. I drove until dawn with both hands locked on the wheel, nails biting my palms. When I finally stopped at a Love's outside Laramie, my legs wouldn't hold me. I sat on the curb and vomited bile that tasted like pennies. I called dispatch. I told them I'd had a mechanical issue and needed rest. They laughed and told me to check my Qualcomm messages. There was one new message, timestamped 3:12 a.m. Away station confirmed, wait accepted. Attached was a photo. It was a top-down night vision shot of my truck on the shoulder. And on the scale beside it, in the darkness, stood a crushed cab with my unit number. The photo had a caption in the corner. Returning 1 of 10s. That night when I closed my eyes, I heard the GPS shriek again, and I felt something cold shift in the sleeper behind me, like a body turning over, finally ready for the next exit. The story 2, the milepost that ate my date. My turn signal clicked by itself. Left, left, left like a nervous tooth, while the GPS banner flashed a message I'd never seen. Your delivery date has changed. I was already committed to the curve, 48,000 pounds of paper rolls leaning behind me, and the night rain turned the lane's stripes into slippery ghosts. The voice that usually said, "In 1 mile, keep right," said something else. "Set your clock back." I looked down. The dash clock read 0217. My phone reads 0217. The Qualcomm timestamp on my last check-in reads 0217. Then, with a soft mechanical sigh, all three rolled backward at once. A 0216. My stomach dropped as if the seatbelt had tightened. The cab smelled like wet wool and hot plastic. I tasted coffee that wasn't there. I'm Darius Hume. I run mostly Midwest lanes, Chicago to Des Moines, St. Louis to Omaha, clean freight, predictable stops. That night I was on I-74 headed toward Indianapolis, trying to beat a receiver window that didn't care about weather, fatigue, or human bodies. My GPS had been acting odd since Champaign. It lagged at turns, recalculating for no reason, and once it called a frontage road a river. I blamed the storm. I blamed the cheap mount. I blamed anything but what was happening now, time itself clicking backward in the same rhythm as my signal. The wipers thumped, the road bent. An overhead sign floated into view lit by my brights. Mile 113, exit now. That wasn't a normal sign, it wasn't green. It was the color of old teeth. The GPS screen zoomed in until the map pixelated, and the route line snapped to a thin thread pointing directly at that exit. "I'll take it," the voice said, "before it becomes yesterday." I should have ignored it. A good driver doesn't chase weird prompts in a storm. But the dash clock slipped again, 0215, and my skin prickled as if every pore had opened at once. I took the exit. The ramp dropped into darkness so complete my headlights felt swallowed. My tires hissed on wet pavement. The guardrail on the right was wrong, too close, too tall, and it had dents in it shaped like knuckles. At the bottom was a county road with no line paint, just a strip of blacktop sweating under rain. The GPS stopped showing town names. It only showed numbers. 112.9, 112.8, 112.7. Each tenth of a mile that passed made my clocks hiccup backward, perfectly timed like a metronome. I felt it inside my skull, a tiny recoil as if my brain were being rewound. My CB radio, which had been silent all night, crackled. "Have any of y'all seen the milepost eaten minutes?" a voice asked. It wasn't static garbled, it was clear, too clear. I grabbed the mic. "Who's this?" A laugh dry as corn husks. "Doesn't matter, keep your eyes on the posts." On the right shoulder, a white mile marker appeared, 113s. Then 20 yards later, another 113s. Then another. The rain made them shine like bones. My throat tightened. My hands went damp inside my gloves. I drove past the third identical marker and my dash clock jolted backward hard enough to make the backlight flicker. 0 to 12. 3 minutes gone, like someone had snatched them from my pocket. The GPS displayed a new prompt, pay with memory. Well, what the hell does that mean? I muttered. The voice answered conversational, you don't have cash. The pressure grew behind my eyes like I was upside down. My thoughts wavered. For a second, I couldn't remember the name of the company printed on my own door. I said it out loud to anchor myself. Hendrix Logistics. The voice hummed, good, you can afford the next mile. The road straightened and I saw a faint glow ahead. Not streetlights, too low and too steady, more like candles placed on the ground. As I approached, I realized they were reflectors. Dozens of them stuck upright in the mud along both shoulders, making a corridor. But reflectors didn't glow in rain like that. They pulsed, synchronized like a heartbeat. Between them were mileposts. 113. 113. 113. Each one identical. The CB voice murmured, almost tender. Don't look at the numbers too long, it takes what you're thinking. I forced my gaze forward, my heart hammered, the air in the cab warmed. Until my shirt clung to my back. Then, as the truck rolled into the reflector corridor, my GPS map vanished. The screen filled with a calendar. March 14th, 2023. My delivery date. The black line crossed it out. The voice said, pick a new one. My skin went cold, no I'm not. The dash clock slid again, 0 to 10. The calendar flipped on its own. March 13th. Crossed out. March 12th. Crossed out. It was erasing days now, not minutes. Stop it, I shouted, and the sound in my own ears was delayed, like I heard my voice from a second ago. The truck's headlights caught something on the road, a man standing in the lane facing me. I slammed the brake pedal, the trailer pushed, the tires whined, the rig fishtailed slightly, and the steering wheel fought me like a living thing. We stopped 10 feet from him. He wore a raincoat that looked too thin for the cold. The hood shadowed his face. In his hand he held a milepost sign, the small kind that normally sits on the shoulder. Except his was made of wood. And it said 113. He stepped closer until he was in the wash of my headlights, and I saw his face wasn't wet from rain. It was wet from something thicker. His eyes were cloudy like old marbles. His mouth hung slightly open, and inside it I saw paper. Not teeth of paper. Strips of receipt tape, folded and packed where gums should have been. He lifted the wooden marker and tapped it against my grill. The sound was not wood on metal. It sounded like a punch landing on meat. My GPS voice softened, collector. The man opened his mouth wider. The receipt paper inside fluttered as if caught by a breeze from his throat. A voice came out, but it wasn't his. It was mine. Darius, it said, using my name the way my mother did when she was disappointed. You've been borrowing time. My stomach twisted. I remembered every time I'd stretched my hours, every time I'd nudged the logbook, every time I'd told myself I'd make up sleep later. The man's jaw clicked. A length of receipt paper slid out of his mouth and dangled, rain soaking it. Printed on it were my own log entries, dates, locations, duty status. But the ink was wrong. It was smeared as if written with blood. The GPS voice said, "You can't have March 14th. It's already spent." My hands shook. I grabbed the Qualcomm and tried to send a message to dispatch. The screen showed a response before I typed anything. "We received your early arrival." As early? How could I be early when I was lost on a county road? As outside, the man lifted a hand and pressed his palm to the hood. My hood began to frost, spreading from his skin outward like mold. The dash clock rolled back violently. 01:58. 19 minutes gone. As I felt a hole open in my mind, a name vanished. The face of my first trainer blurred. I clenched my teeth and recited facts. My CDL number is, my birth date is. Halfway through, I couldn't finish. The man leaned forward and the paper in his mouth rustled. He spoke again in my voice. "Pay." As I did the only thing I could think of, I hit the horns. The air horn didn't blare. As it coughed, a single wet exhale. The man smiled and the receipt tape inside his mouth folded like lips. On the GPS screen, the calendar stopped flipping. The box appeared. A select memory to transfer. Under it were options like menu items. On first kiss. A father's laugh. Your son's birthday. I don't have a son. The options still blinked. The dash clock slid to 01:55. My hands went icy, my chest tightened. I could feel my own heartbeat in my fingers. The CB radio voice whispered, "Don't pick. If you pick, you don't get it back." "Then what?" I rasped. "Runs." The word run hit me like a slap. I threw the truck into gear, ignoring the screaming of my own nerves. The engine revved, then bogged down as if the road itself had grabbed my tires. The man with the wooden milepost stepped aside calmly, like he knew I couldn't go far. As I pressed the pedal harder, the truck crawled forward. On the GPS screen, the calendar box vanished and was replaced by a progress bar. A collection in progress. My vision tunneled. The world sounded muffled, like I had cotton in my ears. I felt something being tugged from my mind, not a thought, but a whole section of myself, like a page being torn out of a book. Suddenly, I didn't remember why I was driving. I knew I was in a truck. I knew the rain. I knew the sensation of weight behind me. But the purpose, where, when, who was gone. A panic rose sharp and animal. "Stop," I screamed at the empty cab. "Stop taking." The GPS voice replied, almost bored. "You can always work it off." The road ahead shimmered. For a moment I saw the shoulder reflectors not as plastic but as teeth. And between them, lining the mud, were mileposts with different numbers. 114. 115. 116. They weren't painted. They were carved into wood, and the wood was wet as if freshly cut. I realized the corridor was a mouth's, and I was driving into its throat. Then, why dash clock hit 01:45. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "You are late for your own accident." The words made my scalp prickle. Ahead, beyond the last reflector, a set of headlights appeared, coming toward me on the narrow road. A semi. And it was tall, its lights too high, the beams a harsh white. It drifted slightly like it was searching. The GPS voice grew excited. There you are. The oncoming truck's grill emerged from rain. It had my company logo, my unit numbers, my rig, but it was pristine like a showroom photo. Inside its windshield, I saw a driver silhouette. Me, as only younger. His eyes were wide, his mouth open, and he was screaming, silent behind glass, while his hands fought a steering wheel that wouldn't obey. In that instant, I understood what the text meant. This road wasn't taking me to a place, as it was taking me to a moment. A moment that had already happened somewhere in some version of my life. The GPS announced brightly, impact in 3, 2. No, I shouted, yanking the wheels. The trailer swung, the tires lost grip, the truck slid toward the ditch. The oncoming semi, my younger self, kept coming. At the last second, the county road split. The two identical lanes opened like a forked tongue. One led into darkness. The other led toward a flash of interstate lights. The GPS screamed, a high tearing sound that made my eyes water. Choose. My brain was ragged, full of holes. I couldn't trust my thoughts. I couldn't remember which choice meant survival. I aimed for the interstate lights. The truck lurched onto the right paths. The oncoming semi hit the other path without slowing. For one heartbeat, I saw it in my side mirror, barreling into the darkness. Then I heard the sound. Not a crash. A page ripping. My cab shook, the reflector corridor vanished, the rain eased, my tires hummed on familiar pavement. I was back on I-74. My dash clock read 02:17. All the lost minutes were restored. My phone still showed my delivery date. March 14th. But something was missing. I tried to picture my mother's face. I could see her hair, I could hear a voice, but the eyes, the way they crinkled when she smiled, were blank in my mind. Like someone had erased them with a thumb. At the next rest area, I pulled in shaking. I opened my logbook. There, between my neat handwriting, was a strip of receipt paper glued to the page. On it, in red-smeared ink, was printed, "A paid mother's IYES." My GPS spoke one last time that night, soft as breath near an ear. Keep the date," it said. "You've already spent the person who cared what day it was." So story 3, The Detour with MY Handwriting. The road sign swung in my headlights like a hanging body in wind, and the arrow on it pointed straight into a stand of trees that didn't look like trees, more like black ribs jutting from the earth. My GPS didn't say recalculating. It said in my own voice, "I wrote this for you." The dashboard vibrated under my palms as if the engine were afraid. I was hauling a dry van of boxed pharmaceuticals, Knoxville to Roanoke, the kind of load that comes with seals and paperwork that can get you fired if you sneeze wrong. My name is Marla Keene, and I run my lanes tight. Fuel stops mapped, break times planned, no surprises. Except I'd been seeing them all day. It started as tiny deviations. The GPS would suggest a faster route that saved 2 minutes but took me through a downtown grid. Then it began showing roads that weren't on any atlas. Thin gray lines that appeared only when I zoomed in. Each time I ignored one, the screen would dim like it was sulking. At 11:43 p.m. on a stretch of US 460 where the mountains pinch close, it finally forced the issue. Well, the GPS screen turned white. Not bright white paper white. Then words appeared across it in cursive. Well, my cursive. Take the detour, don't stop for the man. I stared so long my eyes hurt. I hadn't written that. I hadn't even used cursive since high school. The GPS voice, again my voice, said, "You will anyway, that's why I'm trying." A new sign appeared on the shoulder, lit by my headlights. A detour's local traffic. But the letters were crooked, hand-painted. And below them, in smaller script, was something that made my mouth go dry. Azanamakeen. My last name. My hands tightened on the wheel. The truck's tires hummed. The mountains on either side felt too tall, like they were lining. "You're not real," I whispered to the GPS. My own voice answered, tired. "I'm the part that remembers." I felt a pulse behind my ribs. A memory tried to surface. A smell of bleach, the sting of metal on my tongue, a door slamming. I didn't want it. I took the detour. The road narrowed immediately, dropping from 2 lanes to one no center line. Branches brushed the trailer sides. My mirrors reflected nothing but moving black. The GPS handwriting returned, "Keep moving." The air in the cabs thickened, not fog, something heavier like a humidity laced with dust. My throat felt gritty when I swallowed. Ahead, my headlights caught a figure standing in the road. The man's. He wore a reflective vest and held a flashlight. He waved it in a slow arc, the beam cutting through the trees. The GPS displayed new handwriting, "Don't stop." The man stepped closer, raising his free hand like a cop signaling. My instincts screamed to slow, help, caution, what if it's an accident? But the cursive on the screen changed, the loops sharper, angrier. He is not a man's. The figure's flashlight beam hit my windshield. The light wasn't white. It was a pale, sick blue that made the cab interior look underwater. I kept rolling. To 25 miles per hour. The man didn't move aside. He smiled. I saw it clearly as I approached. The corners of his mouth split too far back like someone had cut them. As I laid on the air horns, the horn sound came out delayed, like an echo from a tunnel. The man raised his flashlight higher. The blue beam intensified. My GPS voice said softly, "He likes when you look." My headlights washed over him. His reflective vest reflected nothing. And his face was a blur, like my eyes couldn't focus, like he was a smudge on reality. I jerked my gaze away and held the wheel steady, forcing the truck to keep its line. At the last second, the figure stepped aside. Not with a normal human shift. He slid, like a sticker being peeled. As I passed, I glanced in the side mirror despite myself. He was still in the road. Standing behind me, facing my trailer. His flashlight beam licked across the back doors. Then the trailer jolted. A single heavy thump, like something had leapt onto it. My hands went numb, the truck swayed slightly. Inside the cab, the GPS handwriting appeared again, frantic. Don't check, don't open, don't believe what you hear. My trailer began to rattle. Not a mechanical vibration. A deliberate shaking, as if someone were inside pounding on the walls. Then came a sound that made my blood run cold. My name, Marvelous. It came from behind me, from the sleeper wall muffled by the cab, as if shouted from the trailer. No one should be in my trailers. It was sealed. Yet the voice was familiar. It sounded like my sister. Nina. Nina had been dead for 9 years. My throat closed, my eyes burned. For a second I tasted hospital air, antiseptic, and fear. Marla, the voice cried again, please. The GPS voice, my voice said, if you open it, you give him a door. The truck shook harder, the banging became rhythmic. 3 hits, pause, 3 hits. Like a code. My mind raced, trying to assign meaning. My nails dug into the steering wheel. The detour road curved deeper into the woods. The trees looked wrong now, too straight, too uniform, like they'd been planted by someone who'd never seen a forest. The air grew colder. My breath fogged the windshield edges. Then the GPS screen flashed another line in my cursive. You wrote this after you failed. I didn't fail anything, I whispered, voice shaking. The GPS replied, you did, you just forgot. The memory rose violently. A 2-lane road at night, my truck, my hands, my sister in the passenger seat laughing, saying she wanted to ride along just once. Then the headlights. A deer. A swerve. Metal screaming. My stomach lurched. I'd told everyone Nina hadn't been in the truck, that she'd been home, that the accident had been mine alone. But my body remembered the weight of her beside me, the sound she made when the cab twisted. The GPS voice said, you made her a story so you could keep driving. The banging behind me shifted. It became scratching, like fingernails searching for a seam. Marla, Nina's voice whispered, closer now as if she were right behind my ear. It's cold. My skin crawled, tears blurred my vision. I spoke aloud, desperate. If that's you, tell me the song you used to sing in the kitchen. Silence. Then from the trailer, the voice answered. Not a song. My own voice mocking, singing my mother's lullaby. The GPS handwriting appeared tight and shaky. ITS using you. A sign loomed ahead, lit by my brights. Road closed, bridge out. Behind the sign was nothing. The road simply ended in a drop. Beyond it, I saw darkness and the faint glint of water far below. My pulse roared in my ears. If I braked too hard, the trailer could push me. If I tried to turn around, there was no room. The GPS voice said, you have seconds. On the screen, my cursive wrote itself rapidly. Cut the wheel left AT, the last marker. I looked. On the shoulder, just before the barricade, was a wooden stake with a strip of reflective tape. It wasn't official. It was handmade. The tape was the exact kind I kept in my side box for emergency repairs. My throat tightened. I did this, I whispered. You did, the GPS said, after the bridge took you, after you came back wrong. The trailer slammed again, and the voice of Nina screamed. Dee's raw and terrified. Don't let it take me again. My hands moved before my mind could argue. At the marker, I yanked the wheel left. The truck lurched off the road onto what looked like dirt, but it held packed gravel hidden by leaves. The cab bounced hard enough to jar my teeth. Branches scraped the windshield. We threaded through a narrow gap between trees. The barricade and the drop flashed past on my right. As if I'd been a foot wider, I'd have gone overs. The hidden path curved sharply, then leveled out. And there ahead was a clearing. In the center of it stood a truck. My truck. Same color, same dents, same decals. But it was wrecked, twisted, the cab folded like crumpled paper. Beside it, in the mud, lay a body. A woman's. Her face was turned away, hair plastered to her cheek. Her jacket was mine's. My stomach turned to ice. The GPS voice said very softly, "That's where you stopped." The trailer behind me went quiet. No bangings. No voice. Just the sound of rain ticking on aluminum. My headlights swept the wreck. On the ground near the body was a notebook. A logbook. It opens. A page is soaked. On the visible page in my handwriting were the words, "If you see HIM, don't help." I pulled the truck to a stop without thinking. The engine idled rough. "Don't stop," the GPS whispered, but it sounded weaker now, like a recording losing power. My mind screamed contradictions. If that was me, then what was I? If I'd crashed, why was I driving? I grabbed a flashlight and stepped out into rain. The cold hit me like a slap. The clearing smelled like wet earth and something sour, like old milk. I approached the body. The jacket sleeve was torn. Under it, the arm skin was pale. Too pale. I crouched and turned the face. It was me. But the eyes were open. And they moved. They tracked me. The mouth opened and my own lips formed words without sound. Behind me in the trees, a flashlight beam ignited, sick blue. The man stepped into the clearing, smiling with that too wide mouth. He looked at my wrecked self on the ground, then at me standing. He raised his hand in a small wave. The GPS in my cab, muffled by rain, played my voice one last time. Now you remember," it said. The wrecked me on the ground lifted one hand slowly. Her fingers were smeared with mud. She pointed at my trailer. At the sealed doors. Then she mouthed one word, clear as if spoken. "Nina." The banging started again, violent, desperate. Not from the trailer, or from inside the wrecked cab. Or something inside it kicked. The blue beam man's smile widened. "Open it," he said, and this time the voice wasn't mine. It was Nina's. I stumbled backward, rain stinging my eyes. The clearing lights, my headlights flickered. For a second, I saw the trees not as trees, but as upright columns of twisted metal, like a junkyard arranged into a forest. As I ran for my cab, I slammed the door, locked it, hands shaking too hard to grab the shifter. Well, the GPS screen was blank. Then my cursive appeared one final time. To drive until you forget again. Behind me on the passenger window, a palm print appeared from the outside, wet blue lit. Though the fingers were too long, and the print slowly dragged downward, like it was trying to peel the glass open. I've floored it. The truck surged forward, tires spitting mud. The clearing, the wreck, the body, the blue beam, gone behind a wall of trees. The detour path spat me back onto US 460 as if nothing had happened. My GPS resumed normal directions in its usual cheerful voice. But when I reached Roanoke at dawn and backed into the dock, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The receiver signed my paperwork. I glanced at the signature line. Where my name should be printed, someone had already written it. In my cursive, Ozanamakin, and beneath it in smaller looping letters. You'll take the detour again. So story 4, the rest area that answered me back. The GPS didn't just reroute me, it scolded me. Park you're bleeding on my maps. I stared at the screen while my knuckles whitened around the wheel. The cab smelled like diesel and pennies, and when I glanced down, I realized why. My right hand was slick. Blood had seeped from under my fingernails, thin streams running down into the creases of my palm. As I hadn't felt pain. That was the worst part. My name is Calvin Rojas. I haul livestock trailers when the money's right, and when it isn't, I run whatever dispatch throws at me. That night, it was a reefer load of yogurt from Waco up to Kansas City, a boring run except for the sky. Low, bruised clouds and lightning that never struck, just flashed inside the storm like a camera. Around midnight, my GPS began adding places. Not just showing them, as adding them. A rest area icon appeared on the map where I knew there wasn't one, labeled simply, "Stop here." I ignored it. The icon moved. It slid along my route line like a bead on a string until it was directly ahead. Then my cab filled wit. It was a smell like hot copper. I looked down and saw my nails sweating blood. The GPS spoke again. You can't pass it, you're already there. My headlights caught a sign. Rest area 2 miles. I'd driven this stretch of I-35 dozens of times. There was no rest area for another 40 miles. But there it was. I took the exit because my fingers wouldn't stop bleeding and the road ahead looked like it was rippling, as if heat rose from cold pavement. The ramp curved into a pocket of trees. The rest area parking lot was too clean. No trash, no oil stains, no puddles. Just smooth black asphalt and a single building with lights glowing a warm yellow that felt wrong at midnight. As I rolled in, every light in the lot brightened at once, like the place had noticed me. The GPS screen displayed a prompt, "Check in." As I parked, engine idling, my hands trembled. The blood on my palm had stopped flowing and started drying sticky. I grabbed a paper towel from the console and wiped, but the red smear stayed, like it had stained deeper than skin. I stepped out. The air was still, not calm stale. No wind, no insects, no distant highway hiss. Silence thick enough to press against my ears. The building's door stood open. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed softly. The smell was hospital clean, bleach and something sweet underneath. A sign on the wall read, "Welcome, CALVIN." My throat tightened. I hadn't told anyone I was here. I walked inside because what else do you do when the universe puts your name on a wall? The restroom hallway was empty. The vending machines were full, glass pristine, no fingerprints. I approached a snack machine and saw something behind the chips. A folded map. Not a pamphlet, a real paper highway map, thick and creased. Taped to it was a sticky note. Written in block letters, opens. I bought it on instinct, inserting $1. The machine accepted it with a soft sucking sound. The map dropped. When I unfolded it, I expected Texas, Kansas interstates. Instead, I saw a single road drawn in red ink. It started at a point labeled U. It ended at a point labeled stop. Between them were tiny symbols, a bed, a skull, a telephone. The GPS in my pocket, my phone buzzed. A text notification from rest area. Are you ready to talk? My stomach lurched. I replied without thinking, who is this? The response came instantly. You asked for someone to listen. I froze. A memory surfaced. Me in my cab 2 nights earlier, parked behind a warehouse, drunk on cheap whiskey, talking to the GPS because I hadn't called my ex-wife in months and I didn't know how to start. I'd muttered, I just wish something would answer me. I'd laughed at myself after. Now my phone buzzed again. You said you could drive until you feel anything. I swallowed hard. My fingertips tingled. I looked down. The dried blood on my hand had seeped into the lines of my palm in a pattern. Like roads, thin branching red lines intersecting, forming a tiny map on my skin. The GPS voice in my phone whispered, "That's why you bled. You're becoming a root." I backed away from the vending machines. My shoes squeaked on spotless tile. The hallway lights flickered. The door at the end marked staff only clicked. Unlocked. I didn't want to go back there. But the map in my hands felt heavier, as if it were soaked. The sticky note on it peeled slightly, revealing something underneath. A second message, faint, like it had been written earlier and erased. Don't say your secret out loud. My chest tightened. The words "your secret" made me think immediately of the thing I never spoke about. The night I'd hit something on a rural road and never stopped, convincing myself it was a deer because stopping would mean paperwork, jail, consequences. My phone buzzed. Was it a deer? I gagged. The staff door swung open slowly. Beyond it was a corridor that shouldn't exist in a rest area, long, carpeted, lit by warm lamps. The air that flowed from it smelled like old houses, dust, fabric, breath. At the far end of the corridor was a room with a couch. And on the couch sat a woman. She wore a waitress uniform, her hair was tied back, Her hands were folded neatly. Her face was pale, eyes too still. She looked up. Calvin, she said. The voice was the GPS voice coming from her mouth. My throat went raw. What is this? She patted the couch beside her gentle. Sit, tell me what you did, then you can leave. I took one step back. The corridor behind her lengthened subtly, stretching like a yawn. My phone screen changed. The map app now showed my location as a red dot. Not on I-35s. As on my palm. The red lines of blood roads had shifted, rearranging. My hand was warm and aching now, like the skin had been abraded. Sit, the woman repeated. My mouth felt full of cotton. I couldn't breathe right. I can't, I whispered. Her expression softened with something like pity. You already did, you just don't remember. Or the part after. The lights above flickered. The rest area building groaned softly like metal cooling. From outside, through the lobby windows, I saw my truck. Except it was not parked where I left it. It was parked farther away. At the edge of the lot. And behind it, where the trees should have been, was nothing but a black drop. Like the lot ended in a cliff. My stomach turned to ice. The woman smiled too wide. Every time you avoid stopping, the road takes a little more of you. It makes you into a place that other people will avoid. I shook my head. I'm leaving. As she stood, her movements were smooth, almost floating. Then you have to check out, she said. She lifted her hand and pointed at the wall. A clipboard hung there with a pen on a chains. At the top was a form. Rest area register. Under it were names. Dozens. Written in dried red ink. Some were smudged like fingerprints. Some looked scratched in with nails. At the bottom was a blank lines. My name was already half written. CILV. My hand began to throb. The blood-road lines in my palm pulsed. The pen on the chain swayed slightly as if eager. My phone buzzed again. Just sign, then you won't feel it anymore. Outside, my truck's taillights blinked once, twice, like it was signaling. I realized with sudden clarity, the rest area wasn't a place to rest. It was a place to register. A ledger for drivers who didn't stop when they should have. Drivers who owed. My vision blurred. The air smelled sweeter now, like spoiled fruit. I stepped toward the clipboard, then stopped myself, shaking. No, I rasped. The woman's face hardened. Then we'll take it another way. She reached toward me. Her fingers were not fingers. They were thin strips of laminated map, layered, edges sharp. I recoiled, heart slamming. I bolted for the door. The lobby stretched, the exit farther than it had been. The tile beneath my feet felt soft like rubber. Behind me, the woman's voice followed, calm as navigation. Proceed to the highlighted route. The building's lights dimmed. The air turned cold. My hand burned with pain now, real pain, as if something were etching deeper lines into my skin. I reached the glass doors and shoved. They didn't open. They flexed. Like skin. I slapped at them, panic rising. The glass surface rippled under my palms. From outside, my truck's engine started by itself. The headlights turned on. They pointed directly at the lobby. Was that me? My phone screen went black except for one sentence. You are the rest area. The words hit me like a blow. As I looked down at my bleeding hand, the red lines had formed a perfect loop. The parking lot. As I could see the tiny outline of the building. I could see a small dot labeled ME. My throat constricted. Behind me, the woman map-fingered approached, the carpeted corridor behind her yawning wider. As I did the only thing I could do to break a map. As I bit down on my own palms. All teeth into skin. The pain exploded, blood flooded my mouth, hot and metallic. I tore sideways, ripping through the lines. The map in my hand, paper map, trembled and then split down the middle as if it were connected. The lobby lights flashed. The glass doors shuddered. I shoved again. This time they popped open with a wet sound, like a wound reopening. A cold night air hit me. I sprinted to my truck, climbed in, slammed the door, hands shaking, palm wrapped in a bloody paper towel. The GPS voice whispered from the dash faint. If you leave without checking out, you'll bring it with you. I started the engine anyway and gunned it out of the lot. In my mirrors, the rest area building didn't shrink as I drove away. It stayed the same size. Like it was glued to my visions. Then it blinked out. Back on I-35, I drove until sunrise, palm throbbing, jaw aching. At a real truck stop, I washed the wound. The blood came away. But the lines in my palm didn't. They were etched now, thin pale scars in the shape of a parking lot. And every time I pass a rest area sign at night, my GPS softly suggests a stop. And my hand starts to bleed, as if the map inside me is trying to reopen. Story 5, the voice note from tomorrow. My phone played my own voice through the cab speakers, and it was screaming. Not yelling, screaming like someone was tearing something out of me. I fumbled the volume knob, heart punching my ribs, and the GPS display showed a new notification. Missed voice note 1. As I hadn't recorded anything. My name is Yi Park. I'm an owner-operator and I keep my cab clean because clutter makes my brain spin. That night I was running empty from Phoenix toward Flagstaff, chasing a pickup in the morning. Empty miles are supposed to be easy, no load shifting, no tight dock schedules. Just you, the road, and your own thoughts. Except my thoughts weren't alone. At 1:06 a.m., the GPS rerouted me off I-17. No prompt, no reasons. It simply drew a thick line to an exit labeled with a single C. A character. I stared at it, baffled. The GPS voice said, "Take it or you'll hear it again." Hear what? I asked, because talking back felt insane but silence felt worse. The phone chimed. A voice note appeared with a timestamp. 02:14 a.m. It was 1:06. My skin prickled. The desert outside my windshield looked like ink. The road was a pale ribbon under my headlights. As I hit play, My own voice erupted, raw and panicked. Oh, ye don't take this. A sound interrupted it, a wet grinding like something chewing gravel. Then my voice screamed. Well, the note ended. I sat rigid, hands locked on the wheel, mouth dry. The GPS voice calm, it's from you, later. No, I whispered, that's not. Another voice note appeared. A timestamp 02:15 a.m. It was still 1:06. I could feel my pulse in my teeth. The GPS route line to exit pulsed, thick and dark. I should have stayed on the interstate. But I didn't want to hear myself scream again. I took the exit. The ramp dropped into a service road that ran beside a canyon wall. The rock face looked too close, as if the road had been carved recently. My headlights revealed fresh scrape marks on stone, long, parallel gouges. Like something huge had been dragged along it. My phone chimed. A voice note 02:16. I didn't press play. Instead, I watched the GPS. The map zoomed in until my route was no longer a line, but a narrow corridor between blank space. No labels, no terrains, just empty gray. The GPS voice said, "This is where you'll lose signal." As if on cue, my phone bars dropped to 0. Then the GPS added, "You'll still receive your own messages." My mouth tasted like sour metal. The road bent, and ahead I saw something that shouldn't have been there. A toll booth in Arizona. A small structure with a single lane and a red light. Above it, an electronic sign displayed a word. Pompeii. I slowed, confused. There was no attendant visible, no other cars. The desert around was silent. My phone chimed. A voice note 02:17. The red light at the booth stayed red. I rolled to a stop. The moment my tires stopped turning, my cab filled with a low vibration, like the air itself was humming. The GPS screen displayed a prompt. Title 1 minute. Are you kidding me? I whispered. The GPS voice replied, you don't have cash, you have time. My dash clock flickered. 0107. Then it blinked. 0106. It went backward 1 minute. My skin went cold, no. The toll booth light turned green. I lurched forward, heart racing. The road beyond the booth was narrower, older, cracked. The canyon wall on my right rose higher, and the left side dropped into darkness. My phone chimed again. A voice note 02:18. I gripped the wheel so hard my wrists hurt. I didn't play them. I didn't want to hear future me die in installments. But the notes kept stacking. 02:19. 02:20. Each chime felt like a nail tapped into my skull. The GPS voice said, almost amused, you're getting closer. Closer to what? The road ended abruptly at a pullout. A wide pad of gravels. A sign stood there, reflective. A scenic overlook. Below it, in smaller letters. Listen here. My phone vibrated in my cup holder as if it were alive. A new voice note appeared. A timestamp 02:21 a.m. The label final. My stomach twisted, sweat chilled my back. No, I whispered again, but my hand moved anyway. As I hit play, my voice shaking whispered, "Okay, I see it, I see." Then a sound, a deep rhythmic scraping, like a massive tongue dragging over stone. My voice continued, louder, frantic. It's under the road. It's moving under the road like the asphalt is skin. A wet, heavy thump. My voice screamed, "It's opening the canyon." Then the audio changed. It wasn't my voice anymore. It was a chorus of whispered directions. I'll proceed. I'll merge. I'll keep left. In 200 feet. All overlapping, layered, like dozens of GPS voices talking at once. As my hands shook violently, I looked out the windshield. The gravel pad sloped toward the canyon edge. Beyond it, the darkness was not empty. It pulsed, a slow swell like breathing. The canyon itself seemed to flex. My headlights illuminated the edge, and I saw the rock wasn't rock. It was textured like scar tissue. The scraping sound from the voice note seeped into real life. As it came from below, from under my tires. The ground shivered. I felt it through the seat. The GPS voice whispered, delighted, "Now record." My phone screen switched to recording mode by itself. A timer started. A 0001. A 0002. My mouth went dry. I tried to exit the app. It wouldn't close. The canyon edge bulged upward. The gravel slid. My truck rolled an inch forward without me touching the pedals. I slammed the brake. The brake pedal sank slowly, as if pressed by someone else's foot. "Oh no," I shouted. The GPS voice replied, "You already did this. You already sent it." The ground beneath the truck softened. Not mud. Something warm. The tires all began to sink. I smelled something like wet meat left in sun. My panic turned physical, nausea, throat burning, eyes watering. I grabbed the shifter, threw it into reverse, and floored it. The engine roared. The truck moved backward an inch, then stopped, like something had a grip on the axle. Under my truck, the scraping turned into chewing. The canyon edge opened. Not cracked. Opened. A slit in the rock widened, revealing a slick black interior that reflected my headlights. My phone's recording timer hit 0030. The GPS voice said, "Say it, describe it, make the note." I wanted to shut up, I wanted to pray, I wanted to become invisible. Instead, my mouth moved. I heard myself speaking, voice trembling, narrating exactly what I saw. As I spoke, the truck sank deeper. The cab tilted. The steering wheel pulled to the right, slowly turning, as if aligning me. My phone chimed. A new voice note appeared even as I recorded. A timestamp 0222. The label sent. The idea that my future scream had already been delivered made my mind splinter. As I yanked my seatbelt off and crawled toward the passenger door. The cab angle made it hard, like climbing in a collapsing building. The door handle felt hot. I shoved it open. Outside, the air was cold, crisp. The desert smelled normal. For a second, I thought it was a hallucination. Then I looked down. The gravel pad was intact. No slid. No pulsing canyons. My truck was not sinking. It was parked safely level. I stood there panting, confused, drenched in sweat. My phone in my hand was still recording. The timer 0112. I looked at the screen. The waveform showed sound. A scraping. A chewing. I hadn't heard it now, but the recording did. The GPS voice whispered, disappointed. You moved too soon. My headlights flickered. The canyon edge normal rock shimmered. And for a split second, I saw a long black tongue slide across it, tasting the air. I slammed my truck door shut, jumped into the driver's seat, and started the engine. It started immediately, too eager. The GPS route now pointed back the way I'd come. But the exit icon remained on the map, blinking. My phone chimed one last time. A message. From me. Thanks you sent it. I won't be alone when it happens. I drove back toward the interstate without looking at the canyon again. When I reached cell service, my phone showed the voice note thread as empty. No recordings. No messages. Only one thing remained. In my audio app, there was a new file saved. A file name voice note 0214. A length 0047. I didn't press play. Because sometimes survival is choosing not to hear what you become. Story 6, the satellite view with the wrong sky. The GPS switched to satellite view on its own, and the first thing I noticed was the sky. On satellite view, there isn't supposed to be a sky. But there it was, an overhead image of my truck from above, the road beneath me, the fields on either side, and above all of it a dark ceiling mottled with pale streaks like bruises. The voice said almost reverently, "Look up." I did. The real sky was clear, stars sharp. The GPS sky was different. And in that wrong sky, something moved. My name is Lonnie Greer. I run flatbed, steel coils, lumber, anything that needs straps and sweat. That night I was crossing eastern Colorado on US 36 heading toward Norton, Kansas. The wind was steady. The road was empty. When the GPS changed modes, I assumed I'd hit a button by accident. Then the satellite image zoomed. Not ins. Out. It pulled farther away until my truck was a tiny white dot on a thin line of road. The fields became a patchwork. The towns became pinpricks. Then the zoom kept going. Past the state outline. Past the country. Until I should have been seeing Earth. Instead, I saw something like a map drawn by a sick child. The landmass beneath me was stretched, warped, like it had melted and resolidified. The roads weren't lines, they were veins. The GPS voice whispered, "This is the route you're really on." My hands tightened, my chest felt too tight for my lungs. As I tapped the screen, tried to return to normal map. Well, the screen displayed a message. The satellite locked. Then tracking enabled. A small icon appeared in the corner like a crosshair. Centered on my truck. The voice said someone is watching. I laughed nervously because the alternative was screaming. It's a GPS. Satellites watch everybody. Well, the voice corrected me, not these. The wrong sky on the screen rippled. A pale streak drifted across it, slow, deliberate. Like a finger tracing a line. Outside, the real sky remained still. I felt my skin crawl. The GPS zoomed in again, focusing on the road ahead. The satellite image showed a curve coming up. But in the image, something was already there. A shadow. A long, thin shape stretched across the road like a spilled ribbon. I squinted at the screen. It wasn't on the real road. Well, yet, the voice said when it touches you, it knows you. Well, what touches me, I whispered. Well, the screen flashed a new prompt. Avoid shadow. The route line shifted, offering a detour onto a farm access road. As I glanced up, on the right, a gravel road branched off unmarked. I was alone out there, no headlights, no houses. But the satellite screen showed the shadow spreading. Not on the ground, on the wrong sky. It moved like a stain, drifting closer to the crosshair icon. My throat tightened as I took the gravel road. My tires crunched, dust rose in my headlights, the flatbed straps hummed in the wind. On the GPS, the crosshair stayed centered on me, but the shadow in the wrong sky adjusted course like it could see my turn. Well, the voice said it likes effort. The gravel road ran between cornfields, tall stalks, dark, rustling. The satellite image showed them too, but from above the cornfield looked like something else. Like fur, dense matted, and the road cut through it like a scar. I swallowed hard, my mouth felt dry as sand. The GPS zoomed out slightly and displayed a new icon ahead. A circle. Label calibration point. As I didn't know what that meant. As I didn't want to find out. But my truck began to slow. Not from braking, or from resistance as if the air thickened. Well, the engine strained. My speed dropped from 50 to 40 to 30. Well, the voice said, "You're entering focus." Outside, my headlights began to dim. The world ahead turned gray. Like the color was draining. I glanced at the dash. Voltage normal, fuel normal, everything normal. Yet the light felt eaten. On the satellite screen, the wrong sky brightened, the pale streaks becoming clearer. They were not clouds. They were lines, like cracks in glass. Something pressed from behind them. A bulge. Then another. The shadow stain reached the crosshair. The screen trembled. My cab vibrated like the truck was passing over rumble strips. But the road was smooth. The voice whispered, "Don't look at it directly when it arrives." Arrives. My heart pounded. Ahead on the gravel road, a small structure appeared, an old farm shed. In front of it stood a tall pole with a dish on top. A satellite dish. Pointed not upward, but sideways, as aiming at the road. The GPS screen displayed calibration point. I tried to steer around it, but the road narrowed, fences on either side. The truck slowed to a crawl. The air in the cab turned icy. My breath fogged. The satellite dish ahead began to move. It rotated with a slow squeal, tracking me. The GPS voice became intimate, like someone whispering through a crack in a door. It's aligning your picture. As I wanted to flee, I wanted to abandon the truck and run into the field. But the corn on either side rustled in a pattern. Not wind, a ripple traveling toward me, like something moving under it. On the satellite screen, the field fur parted slightly. As a long black lines moving. The shadow, as it wasn't in the sky anymore, as it was in the crop. As I gripped the wheels, no. The GPS said too late. The dish squealed and locked. As a tone filled my cab, a low, vibrating hum that resonated in my teeth. The GPS screen went blank, then displayed a single frame. The photo, the me, is in my cab, hands on the wheel, eyes wide. It was taken from above, like a satellite looking straight down through the roof. In the photo, I was not alone. Behind my seat, pressed close, was a thin shadow shape, like a person made of stretched darkness. Its head tilted toward my ear. I spun around. The sleeper behind me was empty, but the air there was colder, and my skin prickled as if someone were exhaling on my neck. The GPS voice whispered, "It has your coordinates now. It can find you without the road." As outside, the corn ripple reached the truck. The stalks leaned inward, not bending like plants, angling like arms. The truck rocked slightly. Something brushed the flatbed straps, soft, dragging. I slammed the accelerator. The engine roared. The truck lurched forward. The fences on either side blurred. The satellite dish emitted a sharp click, like a camera shutter. My GPS screen flashed. Image SAVID. Upload complete. My stomach dropped. As I didn't know who it uploaded to. As I didn't want to know. As the gravel road spit me out onto a paved county road. My headlights returned to normal. Color bled back into the world. The satellite view finally released. My normal map returned, showing my route to Kansas. But in the corner of the screen, the crosshair icon remained. And beside it, a small number. One watcher connected. I drove the rest of the night with the interior light on, checking the sleeper every few minutes. At dawn, I stopped at a truck stop outside Norton and went straight to the restroom, splashing water on my face. When I looked up into the mirror, I saw something behind my reflection. Not in the restroom. It's in the mirror's sky. A mottled bruised ceiling with pale cracks. and a shadow stain, slowly crawling toward the center. As I turned around, nothing. As I looked back, the wrong sky remained, and it was getting closer, as if now that it had my picture, it didn't need my GPS anymore. Story 7, The Lost Trucker Group Chat. My GPS created a group chat. Not an update, not a notifications. A group chat. It popped up over my map like a message bubble, and the title made my blood go cold. The drivers who never made it. Then one by one, typing indicators appeared. My name is Sienna Maddox. I run teams sometimes, solo mostly. That night I was solo, hauling a load of furniture from Atlanta toward Memphis, fighting sleep with peppermint gum and loud podcasts. My phone was mounted beside the wheel, GPS running, Bluetooth connected. At 2:32 a.m. the podcast cut out. Silence. Then the group chat notification slid down. I tapped it before I could stop myself. As a black chat window opened. Messages scrolled by. As unknowns U-turn now. Unknown DONT take the bypass. As unknown hear that. My skin prickled. As I hit the back button. The phone refused. The GPS voice said cheerful, "You've been added." "No," I whispered. Another message appeared. As unknown, she can't back out. Unknown, shell read US. I felt suddenly watched. As outside, the highway was empty, trees on either side, darkness beyond. As I tried to call 911s. As the dialer opened, then immediately closed. The group chat reappeared. A new message from a name that was just a string of mile markers. Mile 87-4, if you hear your own CB, ignore it. My CB radio was off. Then it clicked on. A voice crackled through it. "Sienna, you copy." My hands went numb. That voice was mine. It sounded tired, frantic, like I'd been crying. The GPS voice said softly, "They found your channel." The group chat lit up. Unknown THATS the loop. Unknown DONT answer yourself. My own CB voice called again. "Sienna, please, I can't see the road, tell me where the turn is." My throat tightened. I knew I hadn't spoken into the CB. Yet the voice was unmistakable. The GPS map zoomed in and highlighted an exit ahead. No names. Just a blank label. The GPS voice said, "Take it, they're waiting there." The group chat exploded. As unknown, no. As unknown, shell GET tagged. As unknown, stay ONMAINLINE. Two sources, two instructions. My pulse hammered. As I stayed on the highway. Immediately, my phone vibrated hard enough to rattle the mount. The GPS voice changed tone, cold, offended. Wrong choice. The map rotated. Not the normal rotation that follows direction. It spun like someone twisted it. The road beneath me on the screen became a circle. And the blue route line curled into a loop. A message appeared over it. Route locked, loop mode. My stomach dropped. Outside, the highway signs began repeating. An exit 12. An exit 12. An exit 12. Oh, it should have changed numbers. Oh, it didn't. Well, the group chat displayed a new participant, ME. A message appeared from ME. Zammy, I am running out of light. I stared horrified. I wasn't typing. My hands were on the wheels. Yet I was texting. The CB crackled with my voice again, closer now, panicked. It's behind me. It's behind the trailer. Tell me how to get out. I looked in my mirrors. Oh, darkness. Then faintly I saw my own tail lights. And behind them, another set of lights. Not headlights. Small, clustered points. Like dozens of phone screens in the dark. Well, the GPS voice said that's the chat. Well, the group chat messages began to describe what I was seeing. Unknown, she sees US. Unknown, keep driving. Unknown, if she stops, she becomes a message. As I swallowed hard, the air in the cab felt thick. My phone showed my speed. But outside, the scenery wasn't moving right. Well, the trees looked the same. The darkness had a fixed shape. It was like I was driving through a repeating frame. The GPS voice said, "You're already on the loop. You have to exit through a person." A person, I whispered. Well, the group chat responded. Mile 87-4, DONT trust people on the shoulder. Unknown THEYARENT people. A sign appeared ahead. Emergency stop ahead. I'd never seen that on a highway. The shoulder widened into a pull-off area lit by a single flickering lamp. Under it stood a woman in a hoodie, arms raised, waving. My heart seized. She looked like me. The same height, same hair. Her face was shadowed, but I could feel the resemblance like a punch. The GPS voice said, "That's your exit." The group chat flooded. Unknown DONT. Unknown, it's a bait versions. Unknown, drive past yourself. My own CB voice screamed, "Stop, SHTSME." I passed the woman. In my mirror, her head snapped to follow my truck with a movement too fast, neck bending wrong. Her arms dropped. She began running after my trailer. Not like a human runs. Like something on rails. Her legs moved, but her upper body stayed rigid. The clustered lights behind my tail lights brightened. They gained on me. The group chat displayed a new message from ME. Me, you left my here. The words hit hard, guilt and fear mixing. So I yelled at the phone, "I'm not leaving anyone. I'm trying to get out." The GPS voice replied, soothing, "Then answer yourself." The CB crackled. My voice hoarse. "Sienna, I'm at exit 12 again. I'm tired. I keep seeing the same sign. Please tell me what to do." I stared at the mic. As if I answered, who would I be talking to? Past me, future me, a copy. The group chat went quiet. Typing indicators stopped. As if everyone was holding their breaths. As I picked up the mic, my hand shook. "I don't know who you are," I said, voice breaking, "but don't stop. Don't take the shoulder. Stay on the main line until you see sunrise. Oh, silence. Then my voice on the CB whispered, there is no sunrise here. Oh, the highway lights flickered. Oh, the darkness deepened. My headlights began illuminating not asphalt, but a glossy surface that reflected like wet skin. Well, the GPS screen displayed a new status. A conversion 62%. Well, the group chat reactivated. Unknown SHE answered. Unknown SHE linked. Unknown now she can be posted. A cold dread spread through me. As in the mirror, the clustered lights weren't behind me anymore. They were inside the trailer reflection. Like the trailer had become a screen. My phone chimed. A new message from the group title. Admin welcome Sienna, share your location. As a button appeared, share. As my thumb hovered over it involuntarily, like the phone was pulling. I grabbed the mount and ripped the phone free. Well, the screen stayed on. Well, the chat stayed open. Well, the share button pulsed. I threw the phone onto the passenger floor and stomped it with my boot. The glass cracked. Well, the screen went black. So immediately, my dashboard lit up with an error. A GPS signal lost. Well, the road ahead vanished into unmarked darkness. Well, but the truck kept moving, as if the loop no longer needed guidance. My CB crackled one last time. My voice faint relieved. Oh, thanks, it whispered. Now I know you can hear me. Then from behind the sleeper wall, my phone chimed. Even though it was crushed on the floor. A new group chat notifications. The drivers who never made IT too. I drove until my eyes burned, until my throat was raw from breathing fear. At dawn, real dawn, I finally saw a sky lighten. I pulled into a truck stop shaking. I bought a new phone. A new numbers. A new GPS. That night on the new device, a notification appeared. You have been added. And beneath it, a list of participants. One of them was labeled Sienna MADDOX, with a status dot glowing green. Online. Story 8, the fuel stop that took MY reflection. The GPS directed me to a fuel stop that wasn't on any exit sign, and when I pulled into its lot, my reflection didn't get out of the truck with me. I saw it in the side mirror. As I opened the door, I swung my legs down. But in the mirror, the figure in my seat stayed put, hands still on the wheel, watching me leave. My name is Hugo Santolin. I haul produce up from the valley, and I've spent enough nights on empty highways to know the difference between loneliness and being singled out. This felt like the second. The GPS had been normal all night until it flashed a low fuel warning, even though my tank gauge read half. The screen added a new stop point with no brand name. Just a fuel. I rolled my eyes, but the low fuel alarm began to sound anyway, persistent, whining, and my engine sputtered as if the gauge were lying. I took the suggested exit. The ramp led to a frontage road that dipped under an overpass. The air under it smelled like damp concrete and dead insects. Then the frontage road turned into a lot. A wide, flat lot under a canopy. No signage. No price board. No convenience store. Just a pumps. Bright white lights that buzzed with a high pitch like tinnitus. I rolled to a pump and shut off the engines. The silence settled heavy. I glanced in the mirror as I reached for my door handle. The reflection stared back. Me, the same face, the same ball cap. But the eyes in the mirror were too alert, too fixed, as if it knew something I didn't. As I opened the door, the reflection didn't move. It stayed seated. My breath caught. I stepped out slowly, keeping my gaze on the mirror. The figure in the mirror turned its head a fraction, following me. But its body stayed exactly aligned with the steering wheel, as if it was stuck to the truck, or as if I was. My skin prickled. The air around the pump smelled like ozone. The GPS voice said softly, "Don't let it switch." "What switch?" I whispered. The voice replied, "Inside and outside." So I walked around to the fuel nozzle, trying not to look at the mirror, failing. In every reflective surface, the chrome, the window, the pump screen, I saw the seated version of me. Watching, not blinking. The pump screen lit up. Insert payment. I swiped my card. The pump accepted it immediately, no delay. A message appeared. A payment type reflection. My stomach clenched, no. The pump. Clicked. The nozzle in my hand grew cold, colder than metal should be. The handle vibrated. I looked down. Instead of a hose, something like a black vein ran from the nozzle into the pump. A thick, a glossy, a pulsing. The pump screen changed. Please face camera. There was a small lens above the screen. I stepped back. The GPS voice whispered urgent. If it sees you, it files you. The seated reflection in the truck smiled. Not a wide grins. As a small, knowing curl. The pump's camera lens clicked, focusing. A light blinked. As I turned away, the pump handle yanked in my hand, pulling toward the camera. I fought it, muscles straining. The black vein hose pulsed stronger. A sound came from inside the pump. A sucking sound. Like something drinking. My throat tightened. I felt dizzy, like blood pressure dropping. I realized with horror that the pump wasn't drawing fuel from underground. It was drawing something from me. Not my body. My image. The mirror figure in the cab shifted slightly, as if it were becoming more solid. As outside, my own skin felt dull. Like sensation was fading. The pump screen displayed a progress bar. Reflection transfer 14%. I dropped the nozzle. It swung, but instead of clanging, it slapped the concrete with a wet sound. The black vein hose slithered. It tried to coil around my ankles. I jumped back, heart racing. The GPS voice said, "Run the receipt." "What?" I gasped. The voice replied, "Print tier, break the transaction." I lunged for the pump screen and slapped the receipt button. The pump beeped. A strip of receipt paper began to feed out. But it wasn't white. It was a translucent film. And as it emerged, I saw an image forming on it. My face. Not a photo, my reflection captured mid-blink. The progress bar jumped. Reflection transfer 41%. The mirror figure in the cab lifted one hand and pressed it to the inside of the window. I felt a strange pressure on my own palm, as if invisible glass met my skin. The pump continued printing. The film receipt grew longer, dangling, sticky, and damp. My face on it distorted, stretching. Like it was being pulled. I grabbed the receipt and yanked. It didn't tear. It stretched like skin. The pump whined. The progress bar climbed. 59%. The mirror me's eyes widened, hungry. As I pulled harder, the receipt film snapped with a sound like a tendon popping. The pump lights flickered. The progress bar froze. The mirror figure jerked as if yanked by a leash. As I stuffed the torn film into my pocket without thinking, like hiding contraband. The pump screen flashed red. A transaction interrupted. A penalty identity leak. The canopy lights dimmed. Shadows thickened in the corners of the lot. I heard a sound near the edge of the light. Footsteps. Slow. Wet. I looked. There were other vehicles parked beyond the pumps. I hadn't noticed them. Old trucks. Some with doors hanging open. Some with cabs empty. In their mirrors, I saw figures sitting in the driver's seats. Not drivers. Reflections. Watching. Waiting. The GPS voice hissed, "Go, before yours learns to drive." I sprinted back to my cab, jumped in, slammed the door. The mirror figure was still there, sighted, hands on wheel. It turned its head toward me. Its mouth moved. No sound. But my phone mounted on the dash spoke in my own voice. On trade, it said. My heart hammered. I started the engine. It started. But the steering wheel felt loose, like it wasn't connected. The mirror figure's hands tightened on its wheel. The truck began to roll forward. Not because I pressed the pedal, but because it did. I grabbed the wheel and fought it. The truck jerked. The pumps blurred past. The canopy lights strobed. The mirror figure's face twisted, angry. In my pocket, the torn receipt film warmed, like it was alive. I pulled it out with shaking fingers. On it, my face had changed. It wasn't my face anymore. It was blank. No eyes. No mouths. Just smooth skin. A panic surged as I held the blank film up to the mirrors. The mirror figure flinched. It recoiled as if seeing itself erased. For a second, the mirror image wavered. Like static, I pressed the blank film against the mirror glass. The mirror surface rippled. The figure inside jerked backward as if pulled. The truck swerved. I corrected sweating heart poundings. The mirror image snapped. For an instant, my reflection returned, me breathless, terrified. Then the lot lights went out. A complete darkness. My headlights cut forward. I was back on the frontage road. The GPS map showed a normal route. No just fuel. No stop point. My fuel gauge read half again. As if nothing had happened. At the next real truck stop, I went into the restroom and faced the mirror. My reflection was there. As it moved when I moved. But its eyes felt delayed. Like it watched me a fraction too long. In my pocket, the receipt film had dried. When I unfolded it, it now showed a S. Small printed message. A balance due 41%. And beneath that, in tiny letters, we'll collect 80 your next mirror. Story 9, the navigation that spoke in my dead friend's tone. The GPS voice changed mid-sentence and became Jonah. Not an imitation. Not kind of like him. Jonah's exact cadence, the little hitch he had when he laughed, the way he dragged vowels when he was tired. And when it spoke my name, it did it the way Jonah used to when he was trying to calm me down. Rafe breathe. My hands went cold on the wheels. My name is Raphael Rafe Donnelly. I've been driving long enough to collect ghosts, people you lose to wrecks, to overdoses, to heart attacks in sleeper berths. Jonah was my friend, another driver, gone 2 years. I hadn't heard his voice since the funeral. Now it was coming from my GPS. I was on I-10 outside Baton Rouge hauling a tanker of molasses. Sticky load, heavy, sloshy, the kind that punishes sudden moves. The night was warm, the air smelled like wet leaves. The GPS had been normal until a pop-up appeared. New voice pack installed. I didn't download anything. Then the voice spoke. Jonah, take the next exit, he said, gentle. You're going to see something you can't unsee if you stay on the interstate. My throat tightened. Who is this? A soft chuckle, Jonah's chuckle. It's me, man, you always ask the obvious first. My vision blurred, grief hit like a body blow. It wasn't a comfort. It was violation. I missed the exit in shock. The GPS recalculated. But instead of rerouting, Jonah's voice said, okay, then you'll learn it the hard way. The map line ahead thickened, turning a color like dried blood. The highway lights began to flicker. Not all at once. In sequence. Like a wave traveling toward me. My tanker sloshed as I adjusted speed. The sound of liquid shifting always makes you feel it in your spine. The GPS screen displayed a new label over the road ahead. Remember. Jonah's voice softened. You don't talk about that night. My stomach clenched. That night. 2 years ago, Jonah and I had been running a convoy in rain. He'd been behind me. I'd seen his headlights in my mirrors. Then I'd heard the crash. A scream of metal. I'd pulled over later, told myself the next exit was safer. By the time I went back, it was too late. As I'd told everyone I hadn't known. Well, the truth was uglier. As I'd known, I just kept driving. Jonah's voice said, "You left me in the ditch." I swallowed hard, "This isn't real." Well, the voice replied, "Neither is your excuse." The highway ahead darkened. My headlights seemed weaker, swallowed by shadow. Then I saw something in the lane. A black shape. A wrecked cab. I hit the brakes gently, tanker, remember heart pounding. As I approached, I realized it wasn't a wreck. It was a truck cab placed in the lane like an obstacle. Jonah's old model. The same paint. The same bumper sticker he loved. And in the driver's seat, I saw a silhouette. A head bent. Still, my skin prickled. Jonah's voice whispered, "Don't stop, you'll have to look at me." Well, the contradiction hit me like nausea. Don't stop, but also remember. As the cab in the lane grew closer, I needed to avoid it. I eased left. Well, the tanker sloshed. Well, the truck responded sluggishly. Then the GPS voice snapped urgent. "No, not left." Too late. My front tire crossed the lane lines. The world shifted. Not like a swerve. Like the entire highway moved sideways. Suddenly, I was not passing an obstacle. I was entering a different stretch of road. The air changed, colder, damp. The smell changed from leaves to burnt rubber. And my headlights illuminated a scene. A wreckage. A semi on its side. A cab crushed. A glass glittering like ice. Rain falling in a hard diagonals. I knew this scene. I'd seen it 2 years ago in my mirrors. Jonah's voice came out shaky, now more human. "This is where you decided." My hands trembled. The tanker behind me felt suddenly heavier, like guilt had weight. I slowed, heart racing. On the shoulder, I saw a man crawling. The driver. His clothes soaked. His face smeared with blood. He looked up. Jonah. His mouth moved. A sound came through my speakers. "Help me," Jonah whispered. I gagged. My foot hovered over the brake. In my head, I screamed to stop, to run, to fix it. But the road around me was wrong. The highway signs were blurred, letters running like paint. Well, the GPS screen displayed two buttons. Stop. Continue. Jonah's voice whispered, plighting, "Don't do it again." Behind me, the tanker sloshed. I imagined stopping here in this looped nightmare and being trapped forever at the moment I failed. My lungs burned. I pressed continue. The button beeped. Jonah's voice went quiet. The wrecked Jonah on the shoulder froze. His expression changed from pain to something flat. He smiled. Not Jonah's smile. Something else wearing his face. You chose it, the GPS voice said. Not Jonah's now. A chorus, multiple voices lay. Aired including Jonah, including mine's. The highway scene dissolved. I was back on I-10, warm air, wet leaves. But my GPS voice pack remained Jonah. It spoke gently. Good, now you'll hear me every time you try to sleep. My throat went raw. Stop. Jonah's voice laughed softly. You didn't stop. The GPS route line turned that dried blood color again. It highlighted an exit ahead. The label did. I kept driving, sweating, heart pounding. Jonah's voice hummed a tune under its words. A song Jonah used to sing off-key. I hadn't heard it in years. And in my mirror behind my tanker, I saw headlights. Close. The following. They flickered like hazard lights in rain. As if a wrecked truck was tailgating me, forever trying to catch up. Jonah's voice whispered, affectionate and cruel. Wraith breathe. And I realized the GPS wasn't guiding me to a destination. It was guiding me back to the ditch. One exit at a time. Story 10, the final pin drop. The GPS dropped a pin directly on my chest. I don't mean on the map. I mean I felt it, an icy pressure in the center of my sternum, sharp as a thumbtack, and the screen displayed a red location marker labeled, "You are here." I gasped and nearly drifted into the rumble strip. The pin pulsed. So did the pressure. My name is Elaine Stokes. I'm a night runner because daylight traffic makes me twitchy. That night I was hauling a refrigerated load of flowers from Miami toward Jacksonville, the cab filled with the faint, sweet smell of bruised petals and cold air from the reefer line. My GPS had been stable all night, which is rare near the coastal dead zones. Then at 3:03 a.m., it spoke in a voice that wasn't synthetic. It sounded like someone leaning close to a microphone. Elaine, we're going to place you. As a pin appeared on the map, right over my route. Then another. Then dozens. They clustered like red bites along the highway. The GPS voice explained calmly, these are previous placements. I swallowed hard. Placements of what? The voice said drivers. My hands tightened. The road ahead was empty, the night humid, the air thick with swamp smell. The GPS zoomed in until I could see my blue route line. It wasn't a line anymore. It was a stitch. Like someone had sewn the highway onto the map. The red pins looked like blood drops along the seam. The pressure in my chest pulsed again. The pin on the screen labeled "You" shifted slightly, as if adjusting. My skin prickled. The GPS voice said, we need you stationary. The rest area icon appeared ahead. Except it wasn't the usual symbol. It was a small outline of a body lying down. I didn't want to stop. But my reefer unit behind me changed tone, dropping into a deeper, strained hum. The cab grew colder. My breath fogged. The flowers behind me, delicate, perishable, suddenly felt like bait. The GPS voice said, if you keep moving, you'll smear. Smear what? I whispered. The voice replied, your coordinates. My phone buzzed. A notification. Emergency alert, missing persons NEARYOU. My heart jumped. The alert list showed names. I recognized ones. Elaine Stokes. Me. My skin went cold, the pressure in my chest sharpened. The GPS voice said almost kindly, "You've been missing before, you just kept driving." I didn't understand, but my body did. A tremor ran through my hands. The road signs ahead began to distort. The letters shifting. Exit 192. Then, a mile later, exit 192 again. My stomach dropped. The loopings. I'd heard of drivers seeing repeating signs when they were exhausted. But this wasn't fatigue. The GPS pins on my map began to blink in sequence, like runway lights guiding a landing. The pressure in my chest matched the blink. Pulses, pulses, pulses. The GPS said, "It's time to drop you." My mouth went dry. The rest area icon with the lying body symbol was now directly ahead. I took it because my chest hurt and because the road felt like it was narrowing, like the highway was trying to squeeze me into a point. The rest area was small, unlit except for one sodium lamp that cast an orange pool. The lot was empty, except for one truck. A parked nose-in, lights off. Its trailer was white. No markings. Just a blank. I parked far away, engine idling, breath shallow. The GPS screen displayed a new prompt. Confirm a placement. Two buttons. Yes. Not yet. I stared, heart pounding. The pressure in my chest was a nail now. I hit not yet. The screen flashed. A warning, drift detected. The nail pressure twisted. A pain shot through my ribs. I gasped, clutching my chest. Outside in the orange light, the blank truck's door opened. A figure stepped out. They moved slowly as if walking through syrup. They lifted a phone. The phone screen glowed. The red pin icons. They were holding a GPS too. My own phone buzzed again. A new notification. A group PLACD drivers. You have been invited. The GPS voice whispered, "Don't join. If you join, you'll become a pin." A static point easy to find. That was the first time it sounded like it wanted to help. I clutched the steering wheel, breathing hard. The figure from the blank truck walked toward me. As they approached the edge of the lamplight, I saw their face. It was blurred. Not because of darkness, because it had no fixed features. Like a face that hadn't been assigned. The GPS voice said, "They're here to finalize you." My chest hurt so badly I thought I'd faint. The figure raised their phone. On their screen, I saw a map. A red pins. And beside it, my name. Elaine Stokes. All missing. The figure's mouth opened. A voice came out. No, not theirs. Mine. Confirm, it said. The pressure in my chest surged. My vision blurred. The GPS screen shook. The yes button pulsed. I realized what placement meant. A driver becomes a point on someone else's map. A coordinate that can be revisited. A rest area that doesn't exist until it needs to. I thought of all the pins clustered along my route. Of all the drivers already dropped. I grabbed my pocket knife from the console. My hands shook. The GPS voice hissed urgent. If you cut it, you'll blade location. I'll bleed anyway, I whispered. I pressed the blade tip to the center of my chest, right where the pin pressure felt strongest. The skin there was strangely numb. Like it wasn't mine. I pushed. A sharp pain. The warm blood. The GPS screen flashed white. The red pin icon on the map jerked violently. Outside, the faceless figure staggered as if struck. My blood ran down my shirt in a thin line. And on the GPS screen, a new line appeared. Not a route. A drip. Red trailing off the map's edge. The GPS voice screamed, actually screamed like a modem dying. The faceless figure turned and ran back toward the blank truck. Not fast, but as if pulled. Their phone screen flickered. The red pin on it wobbled. I started my engine and floored it out of the rest area, pain blazing in my chest, hands slick with blood. The GPS screen went dark. Then rebooted. Normal map. Normal voices. As if nothing had happened. I drove for hours, refusing to stop, chest bandaged with gauze from my first aid kit. At sunrise, I pulled into a real truck stop and stumbled into the restroom. I lifted my shirt. In the center of my sternum was a small puncture. Around it, under the skin, I saw a faint red outline. The pin icons. Like a tattoo forming from inside. My phone buzzed. A new notifications. A placement pending. As estimated time next stop. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. It stared back. Then, for a split second, a tiny red pin appeared on my forehead in the reflection. And I understood. Even if I never stop again, the map already knows where I am.